So, as some of you might know, I've been digging with this Ford F250 project for, I don't know, 5 years. And I'm going to chronicle some of what's going on. So, this Ford is, excuse my smoking, this Ford is a 1997 F250 with 7-bolt wheels, weird truck, rotted out bed, and it's a natural gas truck, so it runs on CNG. Anyway, without further ado, let's have a look at this puppy, and I'll show you what's going on with it since I've had it for the last 5 years, and finally starting to take some parts off it and clean it up, and it's a mess. What do we have here? I just get over the light here. You can see I've oiled up one side of the frame already and gotten most of the bed off. I had to cut it off in sections, and very carefully too, because sparks flying everywhere. And here we got these two 3000 psi CNG tanks. And what's most interesting of all is underneath that shopping bag there, uh, you see a little line. That's a fuel line going up to the filler cap, which is about a ½ inch away from that steel panel there that's been cut and is ready to come out. So the only thing holding that steel panel on there is that guy wire up to my winch, and on this side I got another little hand winch doing that corner. So there's about a 2-inch chunk of metal I got to cut off the bottom corner there, and that's whole free swinging structure. And I want to be really careful that it doesn't come down on that gas line. So I've cut the bed of the truck pretty much flush all the way along to the tanks, and this whole piece here, it's just hanging there. So not much holding it there right now. But as you can see, just as for shits and giggles, I took a polishing cloth with a bit of Simonize on it, and it basically, the whole truck basically looked like this here. I just thought, well, I'll pick an area that looked pretty bad and just give it a little bit of a wipe down, and it's amazing how nice it is underneath all that. What appeared to be rust and whatnot is actually, a lot of it is actually good paint, and it's just been covered up with oil and grease and whatnot. Obviously, down in areas like this, in the kick panel or the rocker panels, those are all going to be needed to weld in and replaced. You see the tanks are they're well expired. They're in 2012. They still have gas in them though, and they will still start the truck. Other than the fact that I've ripped the truck apart, so the engine's not really functional at this point in time. And when I brought the truck in here, it fired right up after sitting in a guy's backyard for 5 years, but it had no brakes, just the emergency brake. And I just found out why the other night. The brake line there is actually, it's rusted right through. So there is no brakes on this vehicle at this time. So a brake line's got to be replaced. Just as another aside, there's actually a wonderful little aluminum drive shaft in this vehicle. And I just took a cloth. And in fact, so let me grab a cloth here, and I'll just wipe this spot on the top again. And you can see, get some light on there. That drive shaft is in pretty nice shape, just needs a really good polish up, and it's a beaut. See what's left of the bed on the other side. So we'll take a trip to the other side of the vehicle now. So as I said before, I just got to cut this one little piece, and that whole section is free and swinging. So on this side, I've made a cut down the whole. Can't really see much over here. Perhaps I'll get my flashlight, it might help. Yeah, I get the flashlight going here. So yeah, on this side you can see I've cut down the side of the vehicle there right to the bottom, and sort of cut a little square because I'm going to preserve the filler cap thing and perhaps use it in the new incarnation because it's got a perfectly good fill hose connector thing there, and it's all in good shape, and the the valve behind there is all good. It's all good stainless steel stuff, just needs to be cleaned up. So I'm probably going to reuse that section. So I cut that square out in hopes of reusing it on the new tank when I put it in. And of course, I'm converting this to a flatbed. So when this box comes off, I'm going to fabricate a flatbed to cover it up. So not much holding this section on, so it's the next thing to come off. And also, obviously, before I put a flatbed on here, I'm going to completely scrape down the frame. And what I've been doing, I've been sort of just scraping the rough stuff off like I've done on this side, and then taking used transmission fluid from my Hummer and just liberally painting it on all the bare metal. And what that does is it actually soaks down into the metal really well, and will basically neutralize some of the rust. Also adds a small friction modifier. So when you grind the frame with your papers and stuff like that, you get better grinding, and also doesn't spit up as much dust in the air because you've got something a bit wet that holds the dust down on the frame, and it actually helps the grinding go a lot easier. And not too much to do on here. Rough sanding, and she'll be ready for a thin down coated Tremclad after a thorough degreasing. I use Citrosolve, which is a restaurant industrial product, mixed with a bit of water, and just liberally soak it on all the frame things, and then scrub with a brush, and that'll deactivate all the transmission fluid. And then you just rinse it all off with warm water, and when that completely dries, you're ready for your first coat of thin down Tremclad. I use the oil-based Tremclad, and you thin it down about 20% on the first coat to get it to soak in. But you can see this side of the frame, just with a basic scrape down with a scraper and a coat of transmission fluid, and looks pretty good. So you can clearly see where I stopped doing it underneath the little area there. That's still, it looks horrible under there, and it looks like really bad rust. But once you scrape it down, it actually it starts to look pretty good.